Babies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Don't be afraid, be happy. We're going to invent a new way to make a baby. I need your ideas, of course. So if you were going to build a baby using today's technology, how would you do it? I mean, from the beginning, as an architect, programmer, physicist, chemist, psychologist, scientist, machinist, plumber, electronic technician, or a wizard. First, we'd have to plan every detail, wouldn't we? Before you build, you've got to have a plan of exactly what you want to make. Next, we've got to have all the tools we need to do the job right. After that, we need materials to work with. But I'm not quite sure what those would be. Got any ideas? Once we answer that question, we'll have to figure out how to weave them all together into some kind of order. Something that really works well. Actually, we're going to need the skills of many specialists. So how are we going to hook up let's say the plumbing system, for example? And how much space will it take up? Will there be room for anything else? This could be difficult. Next, we'll have to figure out a way to power this baby. How many horsepower, or is it manpower, will it take to activate all the muscles and everything else going on in a human body? We also need to have proper exhaust and cooling equipment installed. And a real obstacle is how to wire all the parts together so that we have complete control over everything going on in the body. Can we manage all of this wiring so it doesn't get all tangled up, and then design a super-duper brain that doesn't need much electricity? We'll need special machines to make parts that have never been invented before. This could be very expensive. We'll have to try out some prototypes, experimental models we can improve on until we get the ideal motion and control that we're used to in real babies.
Oops.
I wonder how long it will take to meet our specifications, our goals. Here's our problem. Men's invented babies must be told what to do. I mean everything. They're going to be expensive to make. They don't improve themselves on their own. They won't self-repair. They aren't really good companions, and they can't reproduce themselves later on. So let's learn from the expert on this subject. This is how God makes babies. First, He needs proper materials. So He builds an earth and blankets it with an atmosphere composed of just the right amount of gases needed for life. Now God's work is in the details when it comes to creation. He reaches down into the rocks. He goes deeper and deeper until He reaches the atomic level. Out of simple atoms, He creates groups that are attached to each other, called molecules. He likes beautiful patterns, and these patterns contain wonderful and complicated forms of all kinds. As He builds these atoms, He forms governing forms that control lesser forms. DNA is the name of one of these governors that tell other molecules what to do. Soon He is able to create a living cell. It is like a city or even a nation. It has its own government, defense system, food storage, and power stations. In many ways, it is like you, a living individual. God glues millions and billions and trillions of these cells together into tissues, like bones, muscles, nerves, skin, and various organs for digestion, and much, much more. Meanwhile, God has already prepared nature to feed all His babies. Each has been carefully made and given rules so it doesn't malfunction with too much or too little of any of its parts or functions that would imbalance its own system. Then it is put in a larger environment called nature and outfitted with appropriate defense mechanisms and a place in the food chain. Here's a bunch of newly hatched spiders. Everything has a reason to be here. We should not kill life unless we need to, for food or protection. You may not like worms, but they have an important job to do, to make wonderful fertilizer out of dead leaves. They also plow up the soil at the same time. Yes, everything has a purpose, but sometimes we need to watch out. Every creature loves its babies, and we love ours too. Let's see what God's babies can do. God's babies can be taught and act on their own. They're not expensive to make. They can improve themselves without having to be told every little thing. Their bodies can repair themselves most of the time. They can be loving companions, and they can make other babies. Make other babies? Yes, a human baby is the prize of all creation. It is the most wonderful result of all of nature in God's careful planning of His creations. In order to give honor to the best of the best, God made us in His image. We may not comprehend exactly what that means, but at least it means we were made from the same formula that represents God's self. And that makes all human life sacred. Sacred means special or set aside for a special mission. And what is that mission? To represent God to other creatures, to manage God's properties according to the law of love and with the skill of wisdom, truth, and honor. Obviously, creating a human being is a sacred project to be taken seriously, requiring great personal responsibility. To abuse the powers of life, to have babies without being married, to abort living babies, and not provide for the children's needs or abandon one's family, it is indeed a crime against others, and it is also a crime against ourselves. Rather than dwell on such evils, let's affirm our commitment to do the Lord's business His way. Or do you know a better way? No, this universe was so well thought out before it was created that it remains alive and well, billions and billions of years later, and keeps expanding the joy of all who cooperate within it. Only God got it right. If you agree with this remarkable vision of reality, you'll be interested in learning how to manage your creative powers in a way that will please the Lord and not embarrass Him, nor hurt other people. Granted, our sexual privileges are extremely powerful and hard to tame. But this is our task because we love God and because we love to harmonize our lives with the laws of love, which are the laws of happiness. It is true that the greatest happiness requires the greatest struggle. It is also true that the greater the struggle, the greater the joy. The Western world is a civilization caught up in materialism. That means things. It is generally not teaching the wonders of moral behavior. Rather, it is blinded by giving problems a quick fix and seeking personal power rather than including the group's needs. Worse, it neglects or hates the laws of God that He put in place for our own happiness and the happiness of others. Too often, the happiness of others gets lost in our frenzy to meet just our own needs, or shall we call them our selfish lusts. Instead of focusing on selfish disasters, we're talking here about the highest kind of thinking, and also the highest and deepest kind of feeling. These are both in a realm so far above the present world in general that the world laughs at these things, if it even bothers to admit that such higher laws even exist. We'll end this presentation with a look at love, one of the names of God. When you love God, you love yourself. Why? Because the Spirit of God is a loving power that radiates from God Himself to everything He creates. It makes you feel accepted, cared about, and treasured by your Creator. This is proven not only by the way you feel, but by realizing all the trouble He's gone to in order that you can live in the first place. It's very expensive to Him. Just compare the costs of electricity today with the cost to produce the energy of the sun. Given that you love God and you love yourself, would you mistreat yourself or waste yourself? Would you also mistreat someone else, like a beautiful woman who is also loved and owned by God? No. Sometimes we slip and think the wrong things anyway, especially when we're too concerned about our own needs and forget to respect the rights of others. The question arises, are we going to take the responsibility of managing our sexual powers with love, godly love, or allow the body to rule over us with lust and destroy our love for others? This is a battle of wills that everyone joins when their sexual nature blossoms to make them ready for the joys and challenges of family life. Our society has neglected the higher and moral way of happiness for far too long. Let's join together and begin the change within each one of us. So what is your choice? Which do you prefer? Degrading yourself and losing the rewards God promised, or committing to having a happy family of your own? God leaves it in your hands. The choice is yours.